Hello and welcome back. Today I want to tell you why the Baltic Aquascaphe replaced the Seiko Skx 013 as my everyday watch. And to get started, we have to go back to when I actually bought the watch. I bought the Seiko Skx about 3 years ago, brand new, and I wore it during these 3 years basically every single day. Most of the time not on the original Jubilee bracelet, but first on a black NATO strap and later on this exact Perlon two-piece strap. And I was always very happy with the watch, and back at the time these watches were about $300 including taxes, or well below 300 actually, and this watch really always was a little bit of a compromise. I always wanted a 07, a SKX 007, and the problem was that the watch was always too big for my wrist. So I opted for the smaller version, the SKX 013, and that worked out pretty well. But over the time, my taste evolved and my style evolved, and there were a couple of things that I didn't like about this watch anymore. And one day, the Baltic Aquascaphe came along, and I bought it, and I found myself wearing it more and more every single day, and it finally replaced my SKX. So what has changed? The first thing is that the Baltic Aquascaphe is a lot easier to use in everyday life than the SKX, which sounds a little bit weird, but let me get into it. Both watches are divers, so both watches are watertight and have a screw-down crown. The Baltic Aquascaphe is hacking, which means that as soon as you pull the crown, the second hand stops, which makes it a lot more easier to adjust the time to the second. But it also is hand winding, so when the watch has been wearing down and has no energy left, and you pick it up the next day, or you've been wearing another watch and you just pick it back up, you just wind it and it starts working. Where the Seiko Skx does not have this function, so every time you want to start using it and it doesn't have any energy and it's not running, you basically have to shake it until it's working, and then you have to go through and adjust the date, and first the date, the day of the month, and the time. So that is a little bit more time consuming. The second thing is that the Baltic Aquascaphe seems to be a little bit more robust. So what do I mean with that? Both are dive watches. Both are 200 meter water resistant, so the specs are basically the same. But the Baltic Aquascaphe has a sapphire crystal and a sapphire bezel insert. So I don't have to worry about scratches on my glass, which is a nice thing. And it also has a brushed stainless steel case, which hides a lot of the small scratches and nicks that you get out of everyday wear. Whereas the Seiko has a polished side, which clearly shows all the small scratches, and a hard-lex crystal, which is basically a plastic crystal. The bezel is painted aluminum or anodized aluminum, which is not that bad. It actually gets a nice patina on it. But yeah, the Baltic seems to be a little bit more robust, and I don't really have to worry about it. I also never really had to worry about the SKX, but this lets you go through your day still a little bit differently. It also has the much nicer click, so the user experience is a lot nicer with the Baltic than with the SKX. Of course, we have to talk about price. So as I said, this watch was well below $300 when I bought it, whereas the Baltic was, I believe, first order was 600 euros. So it's twice the money, and you obviously want to feel that in the quality, and you do. I believe you do, and that's actually a reason why this watch integrates so beautifully in your everyday life. And that's the last part. The last point really actually is design. The Seiko is undisputedly a classic. It has a very unique style. It evolved over multiple generations, but in combination with the smaller version, as I said, this is the 013, which is a 38mm watch, and not the 007, which is a 40 or 41mm watch. This watch started to feel a little bit like, I would say, a children's watch, because the relationship between the diameter and the height of the watch really makes it look a little bit bulky. It looks a lot more elegant on a 007, don't get me wrong, but on a 013, it's actually not that nice. And along came this beauty, and it is beautifully flat and designed, and takes so many cues from so many other watches. And so yeah, design was the last point why this watch became my everyday watch. Okay, this has been my 2 cents on these two watches. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you in the next video.